This is the Blockchain Show with Daniele Sestagal from Utopia Genesis Foundation, talking about tokenizing the rights to music, music through crowdfunding, and tracking music across the world on the blockchain.
The Blockchain Show is a podcast that demystifies cryptocurrencies and distributed ledger technology.
Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here tonight.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure here as well. I know that we're going to be talking about blockchain and music later on, but before we get any deeper into that conversation, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and maybe how you came to be aware of the blockchain?
Well, I have maybe a story that back in the days in the Bitcoin community was quite normal. A lot of people came from my same side of the learning curve on Bitcoin, but maybe people in 2020 don't know about the early days of Bitcoin. But I was very active in Second Life. And back in the day, Second Life was a mad world. There was a lot of crazy people going on. And a lot of people in the Bitcoin community and the internet people was on Second Life. So it happened that I had some businesses there on Second Life, and you could have shops and make a lot of stuff. And it was a really, really cool place to hang. And one client of one business that I had, it was to build actual worlds. So I would build like houses and special places for, I would argue, rich people on Second Life, right? Because if you hire someone to build your own fake world, you must be quite a wealthy person. And at that time, he told me like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't change my Bitcoin into Linden dollars yet. So I'd like to teach you how to get Bitcoin. So next time I can pay in Bitcoin is much easier for me because I do all this mining thing." And I'm like, and I was very skeptical at that moment, but the amount was decent enough for me to say, all right, then pay me with this digital currency that you talk about. And then I made my first wallet, and I registered into a trading platform that is still active, that is called The Rock Trading. That was actually the only platform back in the days that would allow you to trade Linden dollars, that was the in-game currency of Second Life, against Bitcoin. So that was my first experience with the now very famous Bitcoin, that back in the day was very, very, very cheap and not so well known. That was really my baptism into the crypto space.
That's a great story, man. I remember Second Life. And tell me, how difficult was it for you to set up the wallet? Because I know people nowadays who still struggle with that, funny enough.
Dude, it was impossible. I thought it was the most scammiest thing ever invented in human history. There was all this, like, in that moment, you didn't have, for example, like the 12 words. Like the 12 words is already something that is awesome. It's so easy. But back in the day, you had this freaking key and you had to write it down somewhere or just make it safe in your Windows and computer. That was super unsafe. And we are talking about 2011, I think. And the viruses that you would get in your computer in 2011. Thanks God it wasn't so popular Bitcoin back then, because if not, all the malware would have been searching for private keys over your notepad, because that's pretty much what was going on back in the days. I wasn't any computer expert at all. I was just, doing my own architecture stuff, because I'm by extraction. I studied architecture. So the only thing that I knew how to do in the computer was log into Second Life, use Gmail, and use the CAD software. That's it. That was my knowledge.
Man, that takes me back. One time I wrote down the 12-word phrase, and I lost it. And I remember just beating myself up because there wasn't much money in that wallet, but still the price of Bitcoin went up. And I was just wondering, man, I wonder what that's worth now. Eventually my 5-year-old son came up and he showed me a drawing that he did, and it was on my piece of paper with the 12 words in the background. And I was he thought I was really happy to see his artwork, which I was, but I was just like relieved. I was like, oh man, here's my key. And it's just so silly. It's like getting cash and putting it under the mattress. I was just very reckless, but like in the early days, like a lot of other people, I didn't really know what I was doing. And it's just kind of funny how that kind of turned up like that. And I know other people have lost keys and they've been locked out forever, which is kind of a tragedy for some people.
Dude, everybody has lost a few keys in the pathway. I mean, who tells you that didn't? I don't believe. It's not possible that just someone... In Italy, we say that nobody was born learned. Like, it's a very typical phrase in Italy. And you just not born knowing how to use Bitcoin. Let's be realistic.
Yeah.
It's not that easy. It's not that easy. Now, just on a security level, I think it's very, very complicated. I recently bought one of those crypto steel things for my wife, and I tried to make her open finally her Bitcoin wallet, and I installed for her the app and everything. But even to put the letters into the crypto steel thing wasn't that easy. I tell you, because it gets only 4 letters. And if you're not like very fluent in English, I mean, that's not so easy. Even the easiest theoretical things like a paper wallet aren't that easy at the end of the day. So we are still early in the game. Who bought Bitcoin today can be assured that we are not that far from 5 or 6 years ago in terms of adoption.
That's true. That's a really good point. That's part of the reason we were doing this podcast to begin with, was to show some of the other use cases, how, blockchain can revolutionize not only, finance, like we've seen, which is kind of happening with DeFi, thanks to crypto and the underlying technology, but also other industries. Like we've had lots on the show. But it's kind of just to segue into Utopia Genesis Foundation. Tell me kind of like what the timeline was from when you first started that wallet back in the day to when you realized that this could be, potentially a job or something that could help other people.
What happened was that in 2016, people started to ask me about Bitcoin. Really ask. And say, Daniele, you are the only one that knows about all this stuff. Can you help us buy these Bitcoins, or can you help us do something in the Bitcoin business? And at that time, I was still doing my architecture things. It was kind of a private situation. Most Bitcoiners, early days Bitcoiners, very few people know that they have Bitcoins in general. So you either was in the community back then, and you have met the people in 2014, 15, 16 in conventions or going around the world, or you have remained quite anonymous, in my opinion. So you either got some stake in some venture, like in for example, an exchange back in the days, because you was trading very actively, and all the other stakeholders, but the circles are very tight. Like people stay very anonymous who has a certain amount of holdings. In my case, unfortunately, I didn't have that huge amount of holdings. So a lot of people knew that I had a few Bitcoins, but I wasn't a Bitcoin billionaire, So they started asking me, so how can I get into this? And my partner told me, I think it's about time that you actually stop building things in the real world and you start building things in the digital world. So we started our journey into consulting. I've been consulting since probably 2016, major players in the crypto industry, and in both technology implementation and and investment advice specifically. And at the beginning of this year, one of my friends, Thomas, that happens to be a founder of Utopia Music AG, called me and said to me, I think now crypto is becoming something more solid, not like in 2017, 2018. And I would like to transition part of my company, Utopia Music, into a more blockchain-oriented company and leverage this technology to become even bigger, more open, decentralized, and build the companies of the future. Because in my opinion, and what I do a lot, is to take existing companies that are already profitable, that are already working in very high level projects, tech projects, and propose the blockchain as a technology, not as a goal. Like I think a lot of projects in the blockchain space are solutions that are searching for a problem.
Yeah.
And that is a little bit what happened in 2017 with a lot of ICOs. My approach has been always quite the opposite. So I propose blockchain as a solution to a problem, to existing companies that are searching or in the need of an alternative infrastructure. So that's what happened with Utopia. And working together in these months from the beginning of the year, actually was more like December last year, we have been working on understanding how to implement blockchain technology in an efficient way into their existing business model. So into their existing money flow, and into their existing goals, and try to see if blockchain was actually a good fit. And we discovered that blockchain was the fit. It was perfect for the use case that they had in mind. And that's about it. That's how we got here.
Very interesting. I like what you said about sometimes companies, especially in 2017, were almost trying to find a problem, or I can't remember how you put that, but that seemed very accurate. And it's good to hear that you guys first looked at the company and evaluated whether or not blockchain would be a good fit, because we all know of companies that were just trying to fit blockchain in whatever way they could, like the Long Island iced tea company that put blockchain in their name and their stock went up, or had nothing to do with blockchain. So,
well, looks like it was a solution to their problem. They had a money problem. They didn't have it after.
That's true. So maybe well played on them. This is something we've been talking about on the podcast for a while, is music rights, artists, and whether visual art or music. It seems like a little bit more applicable to music, at least for my brain. I got a background in music, not so much music business, but recording, and there's definitely a lot of rubbing shoulders with people who are into the business side of thing. And it's unfortunate, but a lot of recording artists and big names, they are just getting what do they call it? Like rolled in the flour by some of these recording companies. And I thought it would get better with the streaming services like Spotify and Apple Music, but I mean, they're making pennies each time, if even maybe fractions of a penny if they're lucky. So I'm definitely curious to learn more about just how exactly the blockchain fits in with Utopia, and how you guys kind of got to the next step of developing and all that.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to say that in my opinion, in a lot of businesses, the solution should not be presented as the solution for the last component of the pipeline, that in this case would be the artist, but we should develop technology for higher level organizations to enable efficiency across the pipeline. So at the end of the day, the money flow in this case would be more efficient and also beneficial for the end user, and the end user in this case would be the artist. So what Utopia was focused on was to make the administration and the the data flow and the money flow more efficient from the top to the bottom. Okay, the top to bottom approach. So a lot of companies that I've seen around are trying to just say like, I want to help the artist. Yes, of course, for a traditional person like that, it's just moving towards the music industry. You would say, that makes total sense, and we say, yeah, of course, we need to help the artists. We need to make the artists make more money or whatever. But that's not how it actually works, because the artists in many cases become artists because somebody invested money into their career. So they invested in marketing. They invested in putting them on radio. They invested on putting them on TV. So that's how they became famous. Yeah, there is very few examples in which they just became famous on their own. Like there was, I don't know, in the subway, and then they blew up some way. But that's such a small case into the global music industry that we need to take it a little bit as a venture capital approach, right? So as a venture capital, you invest in 10 startups that you believe that they're going to be good. And one of them, usually you're trying to get the 10x profit. So one or two of them are potentially very good and the others are very bad. That's very, very similar into the artist scenario being realistic. So you invest in a lot of talent that they might be all good. The same when you're in a venture capital, that you believe that all your investments are very good. But unfortunately, not all of them become popular or famous, or their products actually have a fit. And that's the same in the music industry. So the approach of Utopia Music was to say, how can we create the technology for PROs, for music labels that are the players that actually have the money, that want to increase the efficiency in how they make money overall. And then the result of that is beneficial for the artist. But instead of having the Uber approach that's saying like, I destroy everybody else and I'm going to create a complete new economy, that's something that does not apply in the music industry, because if you ever had a minimum of contact with it, you understand that it's insanely complex, analog, full of contracts in between, contracts behind the shoulders. It's an assassination, constant assassination in between all the players. It's a total war, a disaster, and you cannot really take an approach like saying, I have a solution for all your problems, and the solution is for the artists that are already established or something, and they can change the music industry. Recently, it was before this podcast, we were just talking about the fact that you live close to Kanye West. Kanye West has been recently talking about the music industry, and he believes that he can change everything as usual. Like it's a typical, I love him for that, because we need people that believe in what they say. But the reality is that is insanely complex. The music industry is really complex, and the streaming platform, even to take into your point on the streaming, are still running on contracts and that are based on a complete different world than what we are today. So they are paying based on ideas that are from contracts from the 80s with the CDs, and they pay per. So it's really the whole thing. You can a little bit think about it as a huge soup that has a not very good taste, but it works. It feeds everybody. But what Utopia wants to do is change that soup into free Michelin star dinner for everybody. So, and how we're going to do that is with data. That's how you really change industry at the end of the day, if you think about it. They say data is the new oil. I think it's totally true. It's the reality. Like data is the driver. When you see and then you can take good decisions. And data, I think, is the largest driver of our economy at the moment because of that reason. Like for a very long time, we have been like sailors with just the stars, and sometimes we had a cloudy sky. So we didn't know where to go, right? So we were supposedly going north or whatever, but in the reality, we were going where the wind wanted us to go. And that's what happened also to Columbus and all the Caravel and all the... And data, on the other hand, is like having on the Caravel a navigation system that is super high tech, and it gets you where you really want to go if you know how to read it. So I think that was really what was missing in the music industry was data. And that was what Utopia collects.
That's fascinating because you're right. And it reminds me of back in the 80s, record labels were debating whether or not they wanted to transition to CDs, compact discs, as they used to call them. And as data, audio data, and everything was analog on tapes, and they had probably millions, if not billions of dollars in all these recording studios of just running things onto tape, having tape masters. And then all of a sudden, this pesky new technology becomes available to consumers, and it's a huge cost to transfer these old tapes to digital. And a lot of companies resisted as long as they could until eventually something called Pro Tools came out, and then all of a sudden artists could record directly into a digital format, and then it became very efficient, and then all of a sudden they was making money. So then there was a financial incentive, and then everything became more digital, and that kind of paved the way for the modern era of recording. It just kind of compounded on each other. So yeah, I can't agree with you more. And I think that this is another huge turning point in the music industry. And we're seeing it taught in schools, like in Berkeley University, their business department, they're talking about blockchain and how to, they're even talking about micropayments, something that I didn't think would be in a school academic course quite so soon. But I don't want to say it's like a scramble, but I feel like a lot of people are trying to stay on top of this big change. Like you said, we were kind of sailors before, and now there's people who have gotten the coordinates a little bit early. So it's interesting to see if these big recording companies, which have diminished considerably. I moved into the Los Angeles area in like 2013. I think there was 4 or 5 big recording companies, and I think since then a few of them have consolidated, and it's just not. The scene has changed so much, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm curious to get your take on all that, and also, maybe give us a little bit more information about how Utopia is going to use this data in a different way than most other companies might be doing it.
Thinking about the data, we have to take a little bit of step back and figure out how the music industry works today. And what you said about the cassettes and the digital format, it's very interesting because think about this. Like all songs today are digital. So they theoretically have a very specific fingerprint, right? So you can argue that each individual recording or master recording or whatever, it's unique to itself. So it should be very easy, theoretically, to track down this digital media, right? So we should be able to know that for certain that in that moment on TV, that specific song has passed, or a fraction of it has passed with the commercial of Apple. And we should know also, because the digital medium knows how many viewers have been connected to that TV channel, are at that moment viewing that commercial, how many people listen to that specific fraction of a song. And all of that should be really simple, right? I mean, I would say that that's how it should be, right? But that's not how it is. Digital music goes around all the time, but nobody keeps tracks of it. Let's think about where an artist income come from. So music streaming services account maybe at 15% of what an artist is earning per year. The rest is radio, TV, and live music and rights of other people playing that song, or nightclubs playing that song, or live events and things like this. Nobody's tracking that. Nobody. And that's hilarious, in my opinion. So that's why Utopia started to exist. Because they say we need someone that at a certain point is going to say what's going on. Because the copyright law, at the end of the day, is one of the strongest law in the world. If you use my song, I have the right to be compensated, no matter what. Even if I use my own song, I need to pay myself. How tough this law is, that I'm not allowed to play my own song in a public space and not pay the PRO that then theoretically should pay me. You know, it's
funny.
Yeah, it's very funny, but that's how the system is, and I think that it makes sense in a certain way. Because it enforces the fact that what you are doing is art, and art should be paid. Even if you perform your own art, you should pay. Then, of course, you get yourself, but it enforces the fact that if you perform the art of somebody else, you should pay also somebody else. It's like an educational, in my opinion, way to teach the artist that everything they're doing is connected to a legal system in that sense. And that's why they are protected, right? So Utopia, what they did is saying, okay, let's start with one thing, and this is always, in my opinion, the best approach for any company to do. Let's start tracking one medium. And in that case, it's radio. Let's start making sense of what's going on in radios. And as you know, radios is very popular. There is hundreds of thousands of radio all over the world. And I will take maybe a few minutes to explain how radio pay for music, so our listener can understand a little bit more on what's going on in the radio business. So then we will understand why it's important to track these radio stations. So let's assume that me and you, we have this podcast, but we also have a radio station. That could be, because it's very similar kind of business. So apart of talking about dope stuff like we're doing right now, we also would like to play some music every day, and then have our own whatever kind of discussion or what we want to do. So when we want to open our radio station, what is important for me and you is to have advertisement, because we want to generate money as a business. So we rent a certain amount of coverage around the US, around California, for example, around LA. And we say we cover the greater area of LA, and we cover about 7 million people, potential listeners on our radio station. Then we go to the PRO, that is an association close by, usually it's regional, so it's close to us. So the LA PRO that connects all the artists of the area that are all together into this PRO that is a kind of governmental, kind of private, it's kind of strange type of legal construct, but they associate to that because they would like to get paid for their art. So we go to this PRO and we say, we need the right to license music for our radio. So every month we reach 7 million people, because that's what we want to charge to our advertisers. So we have no incentive to lie. about how many people we will reach, because that's a proof. The fact that we pay for that reach is also proof to the advertiser that we are reaching those people. So it's important. So we do a deal with the PRO and we say, we want to be able to stream a limited amount of music, any song that I want every month. And they give us the opportunity to do so in exchange of a monthly payment. So at that point, if we want to play Justin Bieber all day, we can. We can play Justin Bieber, just the same song 1 million times per day if we want to. Or we could play any song that we want. That doesn't change the amount of money that gets paid per play. So the idea is that one time that you play one song, no matter who you are, that it can be you, Ethan, or it can be me, my song, or it can be Justin Bieber, we have the right to get compensated the same amount. It's not that because it's Justin Bieber is cooler, he gets more money. In reality, it's the same. So what happens from there? Then let's assume that we pay $10,000 per month. And we played Ethan 10 times this month, Daniele 10 times this month, and Justin Bieber 10 times this month. Okay? All the money goes to the PRO. The PRO doesn't need us to report. We don't have to tell the PRO what we played. Why should we? It's just an administrative work that I don't need to do, because every radio pays just a fixed amount based on the amount of people that they reach. You see already what is the problem. So who is the PRO going to pay? So what they do is they go to the famous labels. Like you said, they consolidate all each other, because that way they have more power to say to the PRO. So they go to the labels and they say, hey, can you tell me who is the most popular people right now this month? Because I need to know, because I have all this money that I don't know who to give, you know, and I don't know who to pay. So you need to tell me. You need to tell me who I should pay. Then they say, oh, this month Justin Bieber was very popular. It was top chart for us. That it's very relative. How do you know if it's true or not? It's based on the fact that the music label wants that song to be popping at that moment, makes the charts, make more money, theoretically, because that artist in their mind has been the one in which they invested more money, right? So at the end of the day, what happens is that they get paid. They pay Justin Bieber, but Justin Bieber has been played the same amount as me and you on the radio. Same.
Interesting. I'm sure most people don't realize that.
Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. What would be a scenario that you guys hope to kind of remedy there?
Well, today we are tracking 150,000 radio stations at the moment. And we see we are the only one in the world, actually, that see this data in real time. We are talking about like 200 million data points per month. It's a crazy amount. And we know everything about all the radios that have been playing, who is really popular on the radios and who is really getting listened in which hour of the day. We have really deep data on this. And we believe that it's very, very, very valuable for two reasons. The first one is that it would allow finally the PRO to allocate money in a smart way. So instead of doing a lot of research work to understand who is the popular guy and have so many expenses for no reason, you know, apart of the fact that they have no right to ask to the radio what they played, they would know what's going on in their area. So they would know who to pay. And even more, they would really give to their artists and affiliated people what they supposed to give. That is very important for the PRO. Here, what I would like to say is that here nobody is trying to steal anything in the music industry. The underlying problem is just the lack of data, is assumptions. It's a big, big business run by assumption. The assumption that because a certain label spent a certain amount of money in marketing, etc., in the Rolling Stones and in the right DJ Mag, etc., PR publication, that it means that that artist is popular at that moment, or because on YouTube it has a lot of views. That's nothing. Like, how do you know that it's not all bots, for example, that are watching that video on YouTube? That's not a real situation. In my opinion, who really sets the stand of the market is the ones that have a business connected to music, that they need to propose the right music to their listeners because they need to sell more advertisement. Like the radio knows what people wants to listen. And that's why they put certain specific songs, because they know that they're targeting for advertisement is there because they put the right song, not because they put Justin Bieber all day. And now I'm saying Justin Bieber not because I don't like Justin Bieber. It's just an example of the fact that we are saying that he got paid more than others, but it's very likely that he didn't. Maybe there was somebody else that got paid more than him when he actually was the most popular around.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I know earlier you're talking about the disproportionate amount of attention that artists get for some of these contracts that they sign, and I think you're right. There's a lot of money that goes into marketing and the production side of things to get those artists to where they are, and obviously artists are the loudest in the scene. You don't have like a marketing or record labels being represented as much as artists who go on shows and kind of complain about how things are. Not to say that things couldn't be better, because obviously they could be, but there's obviously a lot of money that goes into that. So it's interesting to see just how exactly Utopia is kind of going to be disrupting that industry with kind of like funding music. I know I was seeing that even tokenizing the rights to music, where artists can upload songs that are unreleased after approval, digital rights management. There's just a lot there. Yeah.
Well, so in my opinion, who is right now the important players on the music industry are the record labels and the PROs. Those are the two main elements of the music industry. Without them, there is no music industry. So without a record label that understands the market, understands the talent, understands the art value, there would be no artists. And without the PRO, there would be no money to be paid to anybody. That is the two fundamental components of the music industry. Those are the ones that need to be more efficient. They need to make more money, basically, for being able to flourish. Instead of having smaller and smaller marching and firing people, they need to be able to make more money, hire more talent, and become bigger and bigger and bigger. On the other hand, there are part of the music industry that, in my opinion, are legacy, that is analog. Everything that is touched, that it's analog. So a lot of lawyers, loads of lawyers. That it's very unfortunate, but that's how technology is moving forward. That's one of the reason why we make computers, because we need less and less of this type of labor. And people that do market research based on their own opinions, like consultants sort of thing. That those are the segments that, in my opinion, will go slowly away. There is still, of course, a huge value in them, because there are very specific deals, very specific contracts, very specific situations that will need to still be able to do, and there will be manual. But the reality is that everything, again, goes back to data. A lot of people can say, okay, I can do tokenizations of songs. Okay, and then what? You're just glorifying something that is useless. It's completely useless. A song token without data to enforce the payment to that song token, it's useless. It's a glorified token. Beautiful. I mean, I have it in my wallet. And then what? What do you do with this token? Where are you going to get your money out of from this token? It's not possible. You follow me, I think.
Yeah.
Like it's really useless. On the other hand, if you have data on the token that can prove that the ownership, that fraction of ownership of a copyright in general, in this case, a song, it's entitled by law to receive $1, then it's worth money because it's like a contract. It's like a piece of paper. The difference is that this piece of paper is more liquid. Instead of shipping to you the contract or making a signature and say, okay, I sell you this music right or whatever, we are making this part way more efficient. So there is even a case of people that might want to tokenize their own catalog, but they don't want to sell it. They just want to have a way more efficient way to collect the money of their existing contracts, for example. So a lot of projects have tried to disrupt the music industry, but I think here we are not disrupting anything. Like Utopia is not trying to disrupt the music industry. It's just trying to make the music industry more relevant. And how it's doing it? It's really by giving a global access to data and instruments for people to decide on their own how they want to be playing in this field. And these instruments are as valuable for a single artist or for a record label or for a PRO at the same way. So we are not destroying anybody around here. That's the cool part, in my opinion, of these projects. We are making everybody make a lot of money. That's a cool thing about it. You know what I mean? Like at the moment when you make everything easier, smoother, faster, it's so much better. It's a rinascimento of renaissance of what it should be. The music industry, about art, not about legal contracts and tables full of papers, you know?
Yeah, that's great. I think I'm understanding you now. So it's not so much about disrupting the industry, but it's more like streamlining kind of the ecosystem and providing more access for creativity using newer technologies and big data.
Yeah, when you have more budget for investing in artists, you create a bigger product, a better product, a more beautiful moment. You create amazing concerts and experiences because the music industry is based on emotion at the end of the day. And that is what we're selling. Like if you are in the music industry, you are selling emotions to millions of people. And if your business has to be, yes, I'm selling emotions, but in reality, I'm more into making contracts and 1,500,000 pages of that. The emotions come last. Instead, with technology and with Utopia, we want to change that. We want the music industry to go back on focusing on emotions while technology takes care for them on making everything more efficient so they can do what they do best.
That's excellent. I don't know why I'm thinking about the Renaissance. You know, in Italy, the Medici family, this is according to history books, I don't know how accurate, but, you know, there were benefactors of a lot of visual art and I'm sure some music too. And the result is, you know, Italy is very beautiful. A lot of people still travel there every year to see some of this amazing architecture and artwork that was made. That was kind of a result of the rising merchant class, which separated itself from the nobility, you know, the royalty and the priestly class. All of a sudden, there was this new class of merchants that people didn't really foresee. I guess it's very important. What I guess I'm trying to get at is to have these streams of revenue to support, you know, the arts. And seeing it done through this new method it's very encouraging to me, because there used to be huge barriers of entry for artists to get noticed, like you mentioned. Someone like I don't know, Michael Jackson, or obviously he started out very young, but he had to be at the right place at the right time, have the right family, have the right managers, marketing companies, record executives. Like, not everybody can do that, even if they have the talent of like a Michael Jackson. You have to have all those other factors in place to become a worldwide star. And, maybe it can happen nowadays in the subway, like you said, if you've got a YouTube video that went viral enough. I know there's a few saxophone players I listened to that had started out in the subways. This is just such an interesting time to be alive, all things considered. I'm really curious to see where this goes. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on, how this is going to be received.
The idea of founding and making a foundation that it's external from Utopia Music AG, that is the founder company, was that when we decided to start the project together, and I was kind of onboarded, and I said that the basic principle of blockchain technology needs to remain also in this use case, and that basic principle is openness. So I want that everybody has the same chance to access the same data, because it's very easy for me today to go to one of those 5 or 6 music labels that exist in the world and say, I will sign a contract with you and I will give you exclusive access to this data so you know how your competitors are doing all over the world and you make a ton of money, right? And they don't know. They need to build this by themselves. It's going to take 3 or 4 years. So you can buy all the catalogs of music that is performing, knowing the data 2 years in advance. Imagine that. So you are making 2 or 3 times the money, because the current catalog price is based on the performance of that songs 2 years ago. So you can buy things in revenue already. So you can pay cheaper price for things that you can sell in 2 years for 2 or 3 times more. And that can happen. And I didn't want that. Like, that is not the way that the business should be conducted in 2020. Like, as companies are becoming more and more aware of their ethical part and of social parts and on ecological part, in my opinion, the ethical part needs to be fundamental on building new ventures. And these components is, in my opinion, what drives the millennial entrepreneur. Because the millennial entrepreneur is creating companies in which the ethical components is at the center. And that gives me a lot of hope on how we will perform as society in general. Because corporations are like people. Like they really influential in the capitalist world. Corporations are the most influential, probably, a part of governments. And in the music industry, there has been too much influence without openness. And maybe the legacy system has been like this because of the lack of a player that was willing to say, no, I give the same to everybody. I give the access to the data to everybody. And no matter what, who you are, if you come from any place in the world, you can get the same. And that, to me, was one of the drivers of why I decided to participate in this project. Because when you play in the field, when everybody is running on the same track, then when everybody have the same shoes and the same training, then it's going to be who is going to be faster. You know, the best are going to win if you allow them all to play with the same tools. You know what I mean? And in the case of the Utopia Genesis Foundation, was founded on the principle that we need to have an open data platform to allow anybody that is willing to take this data to build on top beautiful applications and build on top business models and decide for themselves their strategies. That was the first core component on the Utopia Genesis Foundation, what we call the Utopia Open Platform. So with the Utopia Open Platform, you can take from our APIs data from any song since the beginning of the year that have been streamed on any radio station. And you could theoretically, for example, in the case of Steve Aoki, I don't know if you are familiar with Steve Aoki, is one EDM DJ. I could search Steve Aoki and I could say what happened with these songs, where they was played the most, what was the most popular this week or at this hour, or even you could understand at what hour of the day it's played the most. And there is a lot of cool stuff that you can do with data, and anybody could do that. Imagine, for example, one thing that we want to make public is real top 100 lists of what is the most played that week or the past week, but for real, not what the people assume that is the most played because the playlist was automatically going to the second song. Because how many times have you ever thought about how many times your random playlist goes to a song that you don't like, but is still counted like one listen?
Yeah.
Right? Like that might have made it the second most listened song in all the United States, just by the fact that it just goes automatically randomly, but actually automatically after one that is actually listened a lot of times. You know, but the radio is not going to do that. It's not going to just put a song that is randomly after another song. There is some ideas behind that. So that is what the beginning of what we are doing. So allowing anybody to download this data and do what they want with it. We will provide right away with certain specific visualizations. So we like to use a professional platform for do so. I wanted to build my own, but at the end, Tableau, I don't know if you're familiar with Tableau, but it's such a great platform for data visualization and corporate data visualization, very institutional, that is beautiful and very, very, very efficient. And we will provide a Tableau formatted file for people that wants to download this data on a consumption basis. So each API call will cost, of course, in our token something, because gather that data is expensive. But at the same time, anybody can buy it. So there is no discount to one friend of another. Or secondly, we wanted to use blockchain because to make this playing field real, we needed to prove that the data that we are making, you download, is the same data that I'm giving to Sarah or to Universal or to Sony or to anybody else. So we needed to figure out how to do it. And we decided to use a very simple method that is just publishing the Merkle roots on top of our proof of authority blockchain, that it's running as very similar to a federated blockchain with certain players in the industry. So you know, and you can prove at any time that data is the same that I give to somebody else through the Merkle tree roots that are on the blockchain visible. Okay? So that was also very important. Then third thing that we wanted to do, it was to build a solution to tokenize these music rights. This is work in progress because there are some legal aspects that we are working on. But I'm also working with Bitfinex because hopefully they will soon get the license as a security dealer. So they will be able to trade also securities. In this case, it's most definitely a security token because the underlying is an asset like copyrights. So we are working on legally allowing this, and everybody that holds those tokens will automatically have access to the data for free that it represents that song. So it's very cool, and to a very simple tool for crowdfund these songs via the platform using our token. So you can tokenize these songs, you can crowdfund them, you can sell them, you can trade them, and also as a foundation, we wanted also to help new artists to fund these ideas and their projects and their art. So we created a DAO that allows the players inside of the Genesis platform to choose who to fund, even if they don't have money. Because in my opinion, also tastemakers not can be only who is able to invest, but also should be who is able to choose based on their taste. So fan bases or people across the world should have the same right to vote and decide who should be the next big guy.
Yeah. Wow. Man, I love it. I really do. I want to thank you for coming on the podcast today. Definitely, there's a lot more we could talk about. Maybe we'll have to have you on another time in the near future to give us some more updates. But in the meantime, if you would please tell us where the listeners can go if they want to get involved.
Yeah, so you can go to our Twitter at Utopia Genesis, or you can go to utopiagenesis.com. There will be also a panel discussion. So we will be talking about the music industry with the people from inside the music industry, not just me, because I think that is very important for every project to have validation, not just talking. So I, of course, have my opinions, but it's better to hear what other people think in the music industry that are the potential clients, so PROs, music labels, etc., etc. And here we are. We are going to do a EO on Bitfinex the 16th of December. It's better be lined up because the reality is that a lot of people have been already kind of pre-registering and ready to do the IO. So hopefully it will be very successful. And we are working hard. We will very likely deliver most of what we discussed today before the IO. The data platform, open platform, will be for sure available before the IO. We are working on the Genesis platform. I would like it to be before the IO, but I don't know. We are working hard on that. But the blockchain deployment and the data part will be most definitely. It's already done.
Very good. Very good. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.
And I wish you guys all the best. And we'll follow you with much interest and keep our audience updated as we get more updates. So, yeah, I just want to say thank you again.
Thank you very much. It was very cool to be here. It was very cool to meet you. And hope to talk with you soon.
Yeah, same here. All right. And to everyone listening, thank you for tuning in. I'll put the links in the show notes if you would like to learn more. Very cool stuff. Thank you, everyone, and we'll talk to you again next week.